is the agenda setter.
Hello, aspirants. Keeping up with current affairs for the UPSC exam can feel like you're trying to drink from a fire hose, right? Well, in today's session, we're going to cut through all that noise. We'll focus on the 5 most critical issues from the Hindu, Indian Express, and the Times of India. We'll connect them to your syllabus, really get to the why behind the headlines, and most importantly, figure out how to frame those high-scoring answers. All right, let's dive in. So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with a classic polity debate, that constant tug-of-war between the judiciary and the executive. Then we'll switch gears to economics and decode the government's big bet on fiscal policy and something called CAPEX. After that, we're going global to look at the geostrategic IMEC project, a potential game-changer for India for sure. Then we'll tackle a really pressing environmental issue, the growing threat of heatwaves. And finally, we'll jump into the world of tech and ethics with AI and deepfake regulation. Trust me, every single one of these could be a question in your upcoming exams, so let's get started. All right, first up, a topic that's pretty much always in the news, and frankly, a favorite for UPSC examiners, the friction over judicial appointments. This is a core concept right out of your GS Paper 2 syllabus, touching on that fundamental principle of separation of powers. At its heart, the whole debate really boils down to this one simple question. Who should get to appoint India's judges? On one side, you've got the argument for judicial primacy, the idea that judges should appoint other judges to keep the judiciary independent. But on the other side, you have the case for executive discretion, the argument that the elected government, which is accountable to us, the people, should have a say. This is the central conflict we need to get to the bottom of.
Now, this is absolutely crucial to remember. The Collegium system isn't actually mentioned in our Constitution. Nope, it's a system that has evolved through a series of landmark Supreme Court judgments. Back in 1981, the first judge's case gave the executive the upper hand. But then the tables completely turned in 1993 with the second judge's case, which is what established the Collegium. The third judge's case in 1998 then expanded its composition. This history is vital for your answers.
So how do we balance these two massive pillars of our democracy? Look, judicial independence is totally non-negotiable. It's considered part of the basic structure of our Constitution, and it protects the judiciary from political interference. But the Collegium system has faced a lot of criticism for its lack of transparency and accountability. People ask, what are the criteria? This can lead to delays in appointments, and that in turn impacts the delivery of justice. It's a real tightrope walk that our governance system has to perform. Okay, exam time. Here's what you absolutely need to remember. For prelims, the key fact is that the Collegium is not a constitutional body, it's judge-made. For mains, your answer should really focus on this theme of institutional balance, and make sure to use keywords like judicial primacy, executive discretion, and transparency to build a really solid analytical argument in GS Paper 2. All right, let's shift gears to our second topic, a real cornerstone of GS Paper 3, the government's focus on fiscal policy, and its big push for something called capital expenditure, or CAPEX. This is all about how the government uses its financial tools to steer the economy toward growth. First things first, let's nail down this key term, fiscal consolidation. In simple terms, it's the government's strategy to tighten its belt, reduce the fiscal deficit, and manage its debt. Now, this isn't just some policy choice. It's actually a legal commitment under the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, or the FRBM Act of 2003, which sets really clear targets for fiscal discipline. You see, government spending really falls into 2 main buckets. You have revenue expenditure, which covers the day-to-day running costs like salaries and subsidies, stuff that doesn't create any long-term assets. But then you have capital expenditure, or CAPEX. And this is the real star of our discussion today. This is the money that goes into building assets. Think roads, ports, hospitals. The government is shifting its focus more and more towards CAPEX. But why? Well, the answer lies in its incredibly powerful impact on the economy. And this is the why behind the government's CAPEX push. It has a massive multiplier effect. What does that mean? It means for every single rupee spent on infrastructure, our national income, our GDP, grows by about 2.5 to 3 rupees. It's amazing! This creates jobs, it boosts demand for materials like steel and cement, and it encourages private companies to invest, which sets off this wonderful, virtuous cycle of economic growth. So for your means exam, you can bet this is a hot topic. You need to be prepared to analyze the relationship between capital expenditure, fiscal consolidation, and economic growth. You should be able to clearly explain how a CAPEX-led growth strategy really benefits the Indian economy in the long run. Okay, now let's jump into international relations in GS Paper 2. We're talking about the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC. And let me tell you, this is not just some infrastructure project. It's a huge strategic move with massive implications for India's place in the world. So here's a quick rundown of IMEC. It was announced at the G20 summit in New Delhi, and its goal is to create a seamless trade route connecting India all the way to Europe through the UAE and Saudi Arabia, using both sea and rail links. It's a huge collaborative effort involving major global powers, and it's all designed to make trade faster, cheaper, and a lot more secure. Now, you really can't talk about IMEC without comparing it to China's Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. And that comparison is crucial. IMEC is being presented as a more transparent, collaborative alternative. While the BRI has been criticized for creating what some call debt traps for smaller nations, IMEC is built on a partnership model. The whole idea is to diversify supply chains so we're not over-reliant on any one country and create a more equitable global trade system. From an exam perspective, this is high-priority stuff. For prelims, you could easily face map-based questions on the IMEC route or its partner countries. And for mains, you need to be ready to analyze the geoeconomic and strategic significance of IMEC for India's foreign policy in GS Paper 2. Let's turn our attention now to a critical issue under GS Paper 3, Environment and Disaster Management. We're talking about the escalating challenge of heat waves in India and how prepared we are to tackle this silent disaster. This quote from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, it sets a really grim but realistic context. The science on this is crystal clear. India is right on the front lines of climate change. Heat waves aren't just a summer inconvenience anymore. They are becoming a year-round threat to our health, our agriculture, and our entire economy. So, what's our response? What are we doing about it? Well, the National Disaster Management Authority, or NDMA, has developed a framework for what are called heat action plans. This is a proactive strategy. It includes things like early warning systems, big public awareness campaigns, preparing our healthcare system for heat-related illnesses, and putting in place adaptation measures like cool roofs and ensuring everyone has access to water. This is a key part of our climate adaptation efforts. So, how does this translate to your exam prep? For mains, you absolutely must know the key recommendations of the NDMA guidelines for GS Paper 3. For prelims, you should be familiar with terms like IPCC and the main features of India's climate action plans. And remember, this is as much a governance challenge as it is an environmental one. For our final topic today, we're delving into an issue that actually spans both science and tech in GS Paper 3 and ethics in GS Paper 4. It's the challenge of artificial intelligence, specifically deepfakes, and the urgent need for some smart regulation. This question really cuts to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? Deepfakes are these hyper-realistic AI-generated videos or audio clips that can convincingly show someone saying or doing something they never actually did. The technology is evolving so fast that it's becoming nearly impossible to tell what's real and what's fake. And that poses a really serious threat to social trust. The dangers here are huge. Deepfakes can be weaponized to spread misinformation, manipulate elections, completely erode trust in our institutions, and even harass individuals. Now, while our current IT rules of 2021 do have provisions to address this, there's a growing feeling that we need a dedicated law, something specific to regulate AI and tackle the unique challenges posed by deepfakes. All right, before we wrap up, let's quickly recap the key exam takeaways. Remember these points. 1. The Collegium system is a judicial innovation, not a constitutional mandate. 2. Capital expenditure is the engine of long-term economic growth. 3. IMEC is India's big strategic play in global connectivity. 4. Heat waves are a critical disaster management issue. And 5. AI regulation is a top priority for securing our digital future. Keep these points handy for a quick revision. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. Look, watching this is a great first step, but to truly master these topics, you have to practice. So my challenge to you is this. Pick one of these 5 issues and try writing a mains answer on it today. That active recall, that's what's going to set you apart. All the best.